It's Saturday morning. I mean, we're living. I say frequently, kind of half joking, that I'm tired of living through shitty history. But we're seeing the culmination of the last 40, 50 years, 400 years in this country. You know, I mean, this country has treated black and brown and native populations the way that it has for 400 years. And there was like a little window where things seemed like they were improving. And John Roberts and the Supreme Court are taking care of that right now by gutting the last provision of the Voting Rights Act. And, we see people like Charlie Kirk saying that the passage of the Civil Rights Act, those both passed in 1964 and 1965. We're seeing people on the right like Charlie Kirk saying that the passage of the Civil Rights Act was one of this nation's biggest mistakes. And, but primarily for white America, you know, we we won World War II, and then through the 40s, the rest of the 40s into the 50s and into the 60s, we had really strong unions. We had massive marginal tax rates on the wealthy, and we built the middle class in this country. And then the 60s, and we passed the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. And, one thing I think a lot of people get disconnected on, it's like, you know, we like to talk about Susan B. Anthony and fighting for the right of women to vote and the 19th Amendment and things like that. Susan B. Anthony fought for the rights of white women to vote. She didn't fight for the rights of black women to vote. Not even a little bit. That didn't come until 40 or 50 years later. Um, but for a while there, it looked like we were progressing. And then, starting in the early 70s, with people like the father of the Koch brothers, just decided enough is enough. Enough is enough. And then we elected Ronald Reagan after he partnered up with the religious right, and he did away with those high marginal tax rates on the wealthy. And Republicans started their 40-year-long war against public education and women. Their war against black and brown people never stopped. And, now we are at a point, and corporations were just like, well, we've had quite enough of wages keeping pace with inflation and things like that, so that stopped. And it's just been the 1% and white supremacists and white Christian nationalists grinding the middle class into dust over the course of 40 years. And we are at the culmination of that. I mean, we've got last summer, we had the passage of the Big Beautiful Bill, which is going to cut $900 billion from Medicaid, 300 or 400 billion from SNAP benefits. We've done away with the Department of Education, which is what funded all of the before school programs, after school programs, school lunch programs. The Supreme Court took away a woman's right to bodily autonomy. And it's just take from everybody but the 1%. And now we've reached the culmination of that process where we have actual authoritarianism, and Donald Trump and Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem have brought back the Ku Klux Klan in the form of ICE, that is now kidnapping people in broad daylight with impunity, killing people in broad daylight with impunity, wearing masks, as an official arm of the office of the president. an official arm of the executive branch. It's like it's not guys back in the woods who have to buy their own guns anymore. That money for their weapons and their equipment and their masks was appropriated to them by Congress. And now we've reached that final stage. I mean, I've made the joke so many times. It's like I really didn't envision spending my late 50s fighting fascism and authoritarianism, but these are the things that black and brown and native populations have been fighting in this country for 400 years. And only now, in 2026, the 250th year of the United States, happy birthday, America, only now in 2026 are these things being aimed at white people on scale. And, I talk about this a lot on this app. For 57 years, I have lived with and benefited from every privilege that this country has to offer except for generational wealth. I am a heterosexual, cisgendered white man with a law degree, no kids, with some economic privilege, class privilege. And, I think a lot of us are coming to grips with the fact that we're entering a phase in this country where those privileges aren't going to matter. And, whether we've been willing to acknowledge how we white people have benefited from those privileges over the course of our lifetimes, we're about to find out what it's like. We're about to find out what it's like to have those privileges taken away. And then it's going to become a question of, how much are we going to be willing to risk personally in our personal lives? How much are we going to be willing to risk? How much are we going to be willing to put on the line to fight back against that, against what this country is becoming and what this government is doing? For me personally, that has been eating me up for the last few days, few weeks. It's tearing me apart internally because I'm not doing enough. I haven't been doing enough. I make little videos and I speak out, and then I go on about my day and I live my life the way that I want to. Yeah, I make little videos. I go to little white people protest marches every now and then, but I'm not doing anything. I donate money. I'm not risking anything. I'm not putting anything on the line. Certainly not in a way that, people are who look like me, who I've had conversations with recently. Part of it is just geography. It's like my cabin is up in the mountains in the middle of fucking nowhere. But when I'm back in the Bay Area, it's like I'm in the Bay Area. We're not seeing the things on our streets here like what are happening in Minneapolis or Los Angeles or Washington, D.C. or Chicago. Those things just aren't happening here. So it's a very insulated, it's like an insulated geographic existence within all of these layers of privilege that I have. So it's like I might as well be living inside of a bank vault, But there's some uncomfortable times. There's some uncomfortable times immediately ahead of us for white Americans. How much are we individually going to be willing to put on the line? to actually risk.